The mud is so thick I can barely move my legs, and the shells keep falling around us like thunder that never stops." These haunting words came from the trembling lips of 7-year-old Danny Richardson as he sat bolt upright in his bed at 3 in the morning, drenched in sweat and terror. His parents, Mike and Sarah, rushed to his room expecting to comfort him from another ordinary childhood nightmare, but what they found instead was their young son speaking in military terminology about battles, trenches, and warfare tactics that no second grader should even know existed. Danny had been having these dreams for months, but this was the first time he had spoken about them in such vivid, specific detail. What started as concern about recurring nightmares would soon transform into the most compelling case of a parent. Military reincarnation ever documented, as Danny began revealing intimate knowledge of World War I battles that historians themselves had struggled to piece together from incomplete records. The Richardson family lived in suburban Phoenix, Arizona, where Danny attended a typical elementary school and spent his free time playing video games, watching cartoons, and collecting Pokemon cards like any other boy his age. Neither Mike nor Sarah had military backgrounds, and their family had no particular interest in history or warfare. Their home contained no war movies, historical documentaries, or military books that could have influenced Danny's dreams. The most violent content he was exposed to came from animated superhero shows, which bore no resemblance to the detailed trench warfare scenarios that had begun haunting his sleep. Danny's nightmares had started shortly after his 7th birthday, beginning as vague dreams about being cold and scared in dark places. Gradually, they became more specific and disturbing. He would wake up crying about being hungry, missing his mother, and hearing constant explosions. Sarah initially attributed these dreams to anxiety about starting 2nd grade, but as weeks passed, Danny's descriptions became increasingly sophisticated and historically specific. He began talking about gas masks, artillery barrages, and the terrible conditions in what he called the trenches, using language and concepts that seemed impossibly advanced for a child his age. The breakthrough came during one particularly intense nightmare when Danny began speaking in what sounded like a different voice entirely. Sarah, who had been monitoring his sleep more closely due to her growing concern, heard him muttering about going over the top and giving coordinates for artillery strikes. When she woke him, Danny looked confused and disoriented as if he couldn't quite remember where or when he was. It took several minutes of gentle questioning before he seemed to fully return to his 7-year-old self. The next morning, Sarah decided to record Danny's nightmares to better understand what was happening. That night, she captured over 20 minutes of her son speaking in military terms about battlefield conditions, tactical situations, and specific geographic locations that she had never heard of. Danny talked about places with names like Passchendaele, Verdun, and the Somme, describing them with the familiarity of someone who had been there personally. He mentioned specific regiments, battle dates, and military strategies that Sarah later discovered were accurate historical details from World War I battles. Mike was initially skeptical of Sarah's concerns, suggesting that Danny might have absorbed military information from television or conversations at school without them realizing it. However, when he listened to the recordings, he was stunned by the sophistication of Danny's knowledge and the emotional intensity with which he described combat experiences. This wasn't a child playing war games or repeating something he had heard. This was someone recounting personal memories of terrifying experiences with genuine trauma and fear. Desperate for answers, Sarah contacted Dr. Rachel Morrison, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma and unusual behavioral patterns in children. Dr. Morrison had never encountered a case quite like Danny's, but she agreed to evaluate him, to rule out various psychological conditions that might explain his nightmares and military knowledge. Her initial assessment revealed a normal, healthy 7-year-old with no signs of psychological disturbance beyond the sleep-related incidents. Danny was social, academically successful, and emotionally well-adjusted during his waking hours. Dr. Morrison arranged for Danny to undergo comprehensive psychological testing to explore the source of his military knowledge. During these sessions, Danny demonstrated familiarity with World War I history that far exceeded anything taught in elementary school curricula. He could describe the daily life of soldiers in trenches, explain military ranks and organizational structures, and provide details about weapons and tactics used during specific battles. Most remarkably, his information was consistently accurate when checked against historical records, including obscure details that would be known only to serious military historians. The case attracted the attention of Dr. William Hayes, a military historian from Arizona State University who specialized in World War I research. Dr. Hayes was initially skeptical, but agreed to interview Danny as a favor to Dr. Morrison. During their first meeting, Danny stunned the professor by correctly identifying photographs of World War I battlefield locations, military equipment, and even specific uniforms worn by different regiments. When Dr. Hayes showed him maps of the Western Front, Danny immediately pointed to areas where major battles had occurred and described the terrain and strategic importance of various positions with remarkable accuracy. Dr. Hayes became increasingly intrigued as Danny provided information that aligned perfectly with recently discovered military documents and battlefield archaeology findings. The boy described the layout of specific trench systems, the location of command posts, and the positioning of artillery batteries with precision that matched military engineering surveys from the period. Most incredibly, Danny's accounts included personal details about soldiers' experiences that were not found in official military records, but were consistent with letters and diaries that Dr. Hayes had studied in archives around the world. The investigation deepened when Danny began providing specific personal information about his apparent past life as a soldier. He claimed to have been named James Hartwell, a private in the British Expeditionary Force who had served in France and Belgium from 1916 until his death in 1917. Danny described James's family background, his hometown in England, his reasons for enlisting, and his experiences during training and deployment. He spoke about James's friendships with other soldiers, his fears about combat, and his homesickness with an emotional authenticity that was heartbreaking to witness. Dr. Hayes decided to investigate whether James Hartwell had actually existed. Working with colleagues at British Military Archives, he discovered records of a Private James Michael Hartwell who had served with the Somerset Light Infantry and had been killed in action during the Battle of Passchendaele in October 1917. The basic biographical information matched Danny's accounts perfectly. James had been 19 years old from a small farming community in Somerset, and had enlisted in early 1916 following the death of his older brother in the same conflict. The coincidences became even more striking when Dr. Hayes obtained copies of letters that James Hartwell had written to his family during his military service. The emotional tone, specific concerns, and personal details mentioned in these letters aligned remarkably with the feelings and experiences that Danny described during his hypnotic sessions. James had written about the terrible conditions in the trenches, his fear of gas attacks, and his longing to return home to help with the family farm, all themes that appeared consistently in Danny's nightmares and waking recollections. Sarah and Mike struggled to understand how their son could possess such detailed knowledge of a soldier who had died almost a century before Danny's birth. They consulted with religious leaders, seeking guidance on how to interpret their child's apparent connection to a historical figure. Some suggested that Danny might be experiencing a form of spiritual contact with James's soul, while others proposed that he could be accessing genetic memories or some form of collective unconscious related to their family's British ancestry. DNA testing revealed that the Richardson family did indeed have British roots, though no direct connection to the Hartwell family could be established. However, genealogical research showed that both families had originated from the same general region of Somerset, raising the possibility of distant ancestral connections that might somehow explain Danny's apparent memories. This discovery prompted Dr. Hayes to investigate whether other families with Somerset ancestry had reported similar experiences with children claiming memories of World War I service. The psychological impact on Danny became a growing concern, as his nightmares intensified and began affecting his daily functioning. He became withdrawn at school, expressing fears about loud noises and showing anxiety around Remembrance Day commemorations that other children found exciting. Sarah noticed that Danny had developed an unusual interest in poppies, the traditional symbol of remembrance for fallen soldiers, and would become emotional when he saw them displayed during memorial services. Dr. Morrison worked with the family to develop coping strategies that acknowledged Danny's experiences while helping him distinguish between his current life and the traumatic memories he seemed to be accessing. The treatment approach focused on grounding techniques that reminded Danny of his present identity and circumstances. Gradually, he learned to manage the intensity of his nightmares and began to separate James Hartwell's experiences from his own current life. The therapy also included family sessions to help Mike and Sarah understand how to support their son, while processing their own confusion and concern about his extraordinary situation. Dr. Hayes published a detailed case study documenting Danny's knowledge and its historical accuracy, which attracted international attention from researchers studying reincarnation and consciousness. The paper included testimony from multiple experts who had interviewed Danny and verified the accuracy of his military and historical knowledge. Peer review confirmed that Danny's information could not have been acquired through normal learning channels and suggested that his case represented one of the most compelling examples of apparent past life memories ever documented. As Danny approached his 8th birthday, his nightmares began to fade gradually, though he retained much of his knowledge about World War I and James Hartwell's experiences. Dr. Morrison theorized that this might represent a natural developmental transition, where the intensity of apparent past life memories diminished as Danny's own personality and identity became more firmly established. The family noticed that Danny seemed relieved as the traumatic dreams became less frequent, allowing him to enjoy typical childhood activities without the burden of carrying a soldier's memories. The case inspired Dr. Hayes to establish a research project investigating similar reports of children with apparent military memories from various historical conflicts. Working with international colleagues, he documented dozens of cases where children had demonstrated inexplicable knowledge of warfare, military procedures, and historical battles. While few cases were as detailed and verifiable as Danny's, the cumulative evidence suggested that such experiences might be more common than previously recognized. Danny's story also led to increased interest in therapeutic approaches for children experiencing traumatic memories of uncertain origin. Dr. Morrison developed protocols for helping families navigate such situations, emphasizing the importance of taking children's experiences seriously while providing appropriate psychological support. Her work influenced treatment guidelines for unusual childhood phenomena and contributed to greater understanding of how to support both children and families dealing with extraordinary circumstances. The Richardson family maintained contact with researchers studying Danny's case, participating in follow-up studies to track his development and document any changes in his memories or experiences. As Danny matured, he became an advocate for veterans' mental health issues, using his platform to raise awareness about the lasting impact of combat trauma. His unique perspective, combining childhood innocence with apparent first-hand knowledge of warfare's psychological toll, made him an effective spokesperson for supporting soldiers returning from modern conflicts. Years later, the family traveled to France and Belgium to visit the battlefields where James Hartwell had served and died. Danny, now a teenager, was able to navigate the preserved trench systems with uncanny familiarity and showed deep emotional responses when visiting memorials. To the Somerset Light Infantry. At the Passchendaele Memorial, he placed flowers at the section honoring James Hartwell's regiment and spoke quietly about forgiveness and the importance of remembering those who had sacrificed their lives in service to others. The visit provided a sense of closure for both Danny and the memory of James Hartwell, allowing both to find peace across the boundaries of time and death. Dr. Hayes continued his research into Danny's case and similar phenomena, eventually establishing the Richardson Hartwell Foundation for Consciousness Research, funded by proceeds from books and documentaries about Danny's experiences. The foundation supports investigation into reincarnation claims, childhood memories of historical events, and therapeutic approaches for families dealing with unexplained phenomena. Their work has contributed to greater scientific understanding of consciousness and memory, while providing support for other children and families facing similar extraordinary circumstances. Danny's case remains one of the most thoroughly documented examples of apparent reincarnation involving verifiable historical details. The combination of his accurate military knowledge, emotional authenticity, and the discovery of records confirming James Hartwell's existence creates a compelling case for some form of consciousness survival or memory transmission across lifetimes. While the mechanism remains unexplained, the evidence suggests that human consciousness may be far more complex and enduring than conventional science currently recognizes. The story of Danny and James Hartwell serves as a bridge between past and present, reminding us of the sacrifices made by previous generations while raising profound questions about the nature of identity, memory, and the connections that bind us across time. Whether through reincarnation, genetic memory, or some other unexplained phenomenon, Danny's experiences provide a unique window into the lasting impact of historical trauma and the possibility that some memories transcend individual lifetimes. His case continues to influence research into consciousness studies and offers hope for greater understanding of the mysteries that surround human experience and the continuity of the soul. If this remarkable story has touched your heart and opened your mind to new possibilities about consciousness and the connections between past and present, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue exploring these extraordinary cases that challenge our understanding of life, death, and the human spirit. What do you think explains Danny's impossible memories of World War I? Could souls really carry experiences from one lifetime to another? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to stay updated on our latest investigations into the mysteries that remind us how much we still don't know about the true nature of human consciousness and the enduring power of memory across time.